From Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. And episode 20. We are recording episode 20. I got Matt with me today.
What's up?
And I got Jill.
Hey, hey.
And we are grouching and brainstorming away today. So we're going to go ahead and bust out into some congratulations for our listeners, Larry and Judy. They were married yesterday. I haven't seen any pictures, so I'm guessing they were married yesterday. They were
Nobody
supposed to be.
objected or anything.
Well, I couldn't make it down there to be the one person to raise their hand whenever they ask if anybody's got anything to say about this. So, actually, very happy for that couple, and I know everything is going to work out just the way it's supposed to work out for them. And then right before the show, we were talking. We have, I got to pull it up here real quick, but we have another country added to our listeners. So right now, we are heard in the United Kingdom, Taiwan, Ireland, Bulgaria, Australia, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. And Bulgaria is actually the newest one. So, guys, area code 985-377-4816. Call and leave us a voicemail, especially if you're in one of these other countries. It doesn't matter if we can understand it. We are going to play it.
We'll make Mike translate it.
You know? And then our email address is g&b Bossier, BOSSIER, @gmail.com. And thank you, Miss Faye, for telling me that. I needed to spell it out, and I've been saying the email address wrong forever. And so it is G as in Grouch, and as in and, B as in Brainstorm, Bossier, BOSSIER, @gmail.com. And recently got one from old Jane. She sent us one earlier in the week and said she's addicted to the show.
Okay, Jane.
And, out of all the things we can be addicted to, hey, man, be addicted to the show. How about that?
That's what's up.
I'm kind of addicted to it myself, Tonight's episode, we're going to pack a lot into this next hour of recording. As I mentioned in the intro, we are in a new studio. This is the Rule 62 studio in Bossier City, Louisiana. We recently moved because I recently moved. And so we had to have a centralized location to store our equipment. And it takes a little bit to go into a podcast that we're not normally used to. So, we centralized it. We got everything here. I recently relocated to Burleson, Texas. So I make the commute over and we do a little recording. And then I take all of the information back and I edit it and I publish it. And provided nothing goes majorly wrong on this episode, I'm going to publish it right whenever I finish. And so our listeners will have an episode. And then there's a bonus episode going to be out hopefully tomorrow. The guy who gave it, I don't remember his name, but very interesting story he has to tell. Actually, it's me. Which takes us right into the topic.
I was going to tell you, I knew who it was if you needed me to let you know.
We are going right into the topic, and the topic is humility. Yeah. So, I'm no expert in humility. I do know it has a definition, and by Google's version, what do you have, Matt?
I have a modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness.
Okay.
So,
what do you got, Jill? Anything on humility as far as what it means? What do you think it means?
Absence of ego.
Absence of ego.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Hers might be better than Google's.
Yeah, I think it usually is. Would you?
Stop.
So I'm going to read. I got to do it, man. This is actually from step 5 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Y'all ever heard that before?
No.
That is the AA definition of humility. If you Google humility AA, that pops up. So, and that's all we have on humility. No,
It's a wrap.
it is. I will tell you this: it is often misunderstood. It is often confused with humiliated, or humiliating, or being humiliated, or having that process in life that where someone has gotcha. Kind of, and that is not what humility is. I think for myself anyway, it is a ability to say, I don't know. The I don't know. For years, I struggled with alcohol. King alcohol is what we call it in AA. John Barleycorn for short. But I struggled with alcohol, and every single time I thought I could fix the problem. I thought there was something that I could do, this broke mind could do, to jump in and solve my alcohol problem. And nothing could have been more far from the truth, right? It took coming. One, I have a huge ego, have a big pride problem, and none of that in my mind played a real big role in not wanting to come to AA. I really was just scared to come to AA. I knew I had to go. I knew I needed to go, but I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to listen to people tell me how they got well and how I could get well. All I got to do is take a few simple steps.
But in all honesty, who does?
Well,
True.
I wasn't terribly excited about this, new chapter of my life, and
ego deflating as well.
Exactly.
And I like the way you said that, new chapter. I think it takes a degree of humility to enter a new chapter.
It really does. Maybe a certain level of beat down.
Some of that's exactly what I was fixing to say. Some of us have to be literally beaten within an inch of our life to acquire that.
Yeah, it's like that's the only
Where
step.
there's nowhere else to turn.
Exactly, that's all you have.
Mike was talking about in an earlier thing about going to treatment, and a guy in the program, him connecting with the guy and able to go forward. And that's kind of where it started with me. Was the counselor I had was one of us, and I came in and said, well, we'll do this, we'll do that. I'm gonna give directions at this treatment center, of what's. And she said, let's go down a list here, and made a list of all my accomplishments so far that had wound me up in there. And I went, maybe I don't have this figured out, and went from there. But it's sometimes the beat down is got to be severe enough for us to acquire it.
Yeah, one way out.
Yeah. Humility, whether it's acquired by a beat down, or I think for most people, I guess with my personality, that is required. You have to have enough pain in order to make a change. But I like to be an expert on everything. Even if I don't know anything about anything, I like to be an expert on everything. And so I don't know anything about being sober, just period. I walk into the rooms of AA, and all I know is what I've learned in treatment centers. And that obviously didn't do me no good, because I kept going back over and over again. Not that anything against the treatment center. I didn't have enough humility to just sit and listen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So humility is actually, it has to be, you have to have it to some degree. Every step in the recovery process is ego deflating, but at some point you have to have enough humility to realize it, and you don't need credit for everything, right?
Yeah, sure.
You can be perfectly okay. You can stop on the side of the road, help somebody fix a tire, right? I don't care if your knuckles are busted, you fell, you hit the ground, somebody drove by and a pebble popped you in the back of the head and you're bleeding. You don't have to walk into AA and go, yeah, I changed somebody's tire today. You just don't have to do it. The point is that person got what they needed in order to survive, And being able to do that without recognition is also another degree of humility. Step 2 tells us true humility and an open mind can lead us to faith And every AA meeting is an assurance that God's will restore us to sanity if we rightly relate ourselves to Him. So no matter what your version of a higher power is, I think that in most faiths, the higher power had a great degree of humility. Just, I don't think that I'm going to do anything on this earth that they're still going to be talking about in 2,000 years, by no means. But I think that there was a level of humility in all of the faiths that I've studied from from where it originated. There was a level of humility. So imagine I walk into a room and I say, hey, I don't know anything. I need you. I got to have your help, right? I need you to help me. And people do. And then I take that knowledge that I learned and then I get to pass it on to another person. And I don't have to talk about who I'm passing it on to or even if they got it, because there's a level of humility if we talk about honesty and how many of the people we've helped over the years that actually got it, and it's a small percentage.
Yeah.
Well, and this weekend, talking about humility has just been for me. Had a guy go back out after about 8 months, and so been dealing with him almost on an hourly basis for the last few days, and going back through that process and listening to the hot mess that I was. I mean, everything he's saying was me, and it's like I needed all that, and it's just so grounding to go, oh man, like, and it was great, and we're trying to get him some help and do all that stuff. But, and then to listen to him, the lack of humility, the lack of, it's everyone else's fault. I don't have a problem. It's blah, 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 blah. All the things that I said when I came in here, he's saying, and it's just like a broken record. And I'm like, we all do this. That's what hit me is we all in this program, we do it coming in. We all, for the most part, act that way. And then somebody helps us along a little bit and they're listening, and it's just a revolving deal, and it was really good for me to be involved with that, and still am when I leave here, as a matter of fact. So, but yeah, I mean, there go I, and have gone, and so.
Well, how many of us, are in anything? Like Matt, let's just, you're in the business of cutting grass. Mm-hmm. How many times have you been able to solve a problem by knowing everything? Probably none. I'm in a retail business myself, and generally the problem's not going to get solved until I say, I don't know how to solve it. Let me pick up whatever tools I have and call somebody and reach out and get some help. Mm-hmm. And that's with anything. Your family, man. When let's just, I don't know about anybody else, but when my kids were born, I did not get an instruction manual. Yeah. This is how to raise a kid, right? And so how many times did I wing it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And look at how they turned out. I mean, no, for real. Like there's times where I had to pick up the phone and call my mom. Hey, look, we got a, stage 3 fever over here. What do we do about it? Michael, have you been washing your hands after you go to the bathroom? Yeah, it took a lot for me to get to, COVID actually started me doing that. But Jill's over here like I'm serious.
That was like 2 years ago, Mike.
Yeah, stopped brushing my teeth, started washing my hands. That's crazy.
I mean, you gotta have, you gotta pick something, but and two, it just today realizing, the level of my own importance and everything. I'm just not that important. I'm just not, and I'm not the end all be all of anything, whether it's my job, my family, or anything else. I screw stuff up just like other people do. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
And when you can sit back and look at that and go, I do the best I can every day. Sometimes I'm okay. Sometimes I'm not. And, but it takes that, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it just kind of takes that pressure off to go, it's going to be okay. You know, if I make a mistake, I just make a mistake. I try to fix it and move on. And I realize that I'm not the perfect man, you know, walking the earth. So it's okay to do that.
Yeah. For me, I think it was less of that because I didn't really think too much of myself, but it was, I thought I knew something. And it just kind of proved that I literally knew nothing, and having to like shut my mouth and, you know, learn about myself and learn about the world and how things really work. Because I was in a completely deluded state for so long, entitled and selfish, that I just wasn't living the right way. And I just thought that's the way you were supposed to live. And so for me, it was shutting up and learning something new. I mean, because everything that I thought I knew was wrong, literally. And that to me was incredibly scary, because like, how else are you supposed to do it? Even if you're a train wreck and things are going horribly wrong, like I don't understand what I'm supposed to do then.
Yeah, and I get it. I get it 100%.
Yeah.
Humility is, it's one of the key things. It's kind of like willingness. You know, you got to have enough humility to, well, let's just go back to step 5, right? It even says in the chapter 6 into action in the big book, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty, and in the sense we find it necessary, until they told someone else their life story, right? So it takes a lot of humility, you know, and we've already talked about step 5. You know, we've done that. And where we're going with this is to step 6 and 7, you know, because humbly asking God to remove my character defects is a little bit different than asking God to remove my character defects. There's a difference, okay? I mean it.
Yeah.
When I'm humbly asking him to remove my character.
Isn't that strange? Because I don't think there's any other point in my life before then that I was like, God, please take this away from me. I mean, it was like begging. Like, I really don't want this selfishness and dishonesty and resentment and fear and all of this. I've never wanted it so bad in my life.
But when you humbly do it, it seems to work.
Yeah.
It's just it's totally out of the norm to just, you know, ask for something and get it. But when you humbly ask for something from a higher power, at least for me anyway, he delivered, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I go back to June 21st, 2011. Man, I'm laying on that bed, and I'd asked God to help me a bunch. And looking back, he did, because I ended up on that bed on June 21st, 2011. But I had never meant anything in my entire life. Like, I guess inside I had given up.
I think that's what it takes, that ultimate, like, surrender.
Surrender, yeah. I had completely given up on the fact that I'm going to be the one that gets me better. I just, there's no way, you know. So I humbly asked him to help me, and he did. And you know, that, I don't know. Bill writes in his story, belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. And so what's he talking about when we say the new order of things? Well, a new way of living. So in order for me to have this new way of living, I've got to have willingness, we've already talked about, honesty, I think we talked about, maybe not, and humility. And we have talked about honesty in one of our episodes. So it is definitely a changing thing whenever you do things humbly. And I can't for the life of me think of a better way to do it. So when I look at, let's see, in the personal stories, it is a striking thought that God never forces anyone to do his will. that his help is ever available, but has to be sought in all earnestness and humility. Well, that's pretty cool, ain't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's the 3 things in the big book where it mentions humility. So I'm going to go to 12 and 12. We're going to look at the 12 and 12. What y'all think?
Let's do it.
And I think too, what helped me in the program while you're going through that is to encourage me along is that I've encountered people further down the journey than me. And that's what always got me was the humility of people sharing and people talking with me after a meeting or before a meeting. And, you know, they're so well put together and they've gotten sober and they've done well. And then you hear and they're just so matter of fact and they're like, yeah, you know, did whatever. And you go, oh my God. And it's just such a lack of ego or self-importance that they're, you know, they don't have their self up on a pedestal by any means. And, you know, and out the world outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, most people, that's what they do, you know, and it's all about me. That's what you hear and see on a daily basis. And it was just so refreshing to be around that and not know what was going on. And I had to figure out where they got that. And you know, I'm glad to be a part of it today.
Well, you know, I've seen a lot of people go through tragedies in AA. And, you know, I don't know whether to call it humility, but I think there's a certain degree of humility that pops in there whenever you come to an AA meeting after a tragedy because you know better. Like there's nothing else that I can possibly do. So, what you think? I mean, I think that's just one example of the humility that I've seen in the rooms of AA.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, I'm not going to go too wild with the story, but my sponsor had one earlier this year, you know, and to be there, he set his butt in the chair that day. And I mean, it was on the day of that.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, when you see people walking the walk, you know, that just kind of, it was something for everybody in that room to see, you know, it helped everybody in that room and he knew where he needed to go and what he needed to do, that day and in that moment. So, and there's a lot of that stuff in there, you know,
Like that. You know, cause it shows the newcomer and everybody else, like this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Joe and Phil, 8 million years of sobriety. I hope Mr. Phil's listening. He's not at our group anymore. He moved, but I when I got there, I mean, and literally between them, probably 80 years of sobriety, maybe close to that. And
yeah, that's about right.
And I'm sitting in there and I'm going, I got like, you know, an hour or whatever I had of sobriety at the time. And I'm like, man, why are they coming in here? You know? And, but to meet those guys and to realize how down to earth they were and just the whole deal, and humility, you know, very humble, and great guys and just very encouraging. But what it gave me a deal of, well, if they've been in here that long and they're still coming steady to meetings, then I don't have an excuse not to go. And it was a great example to me of what I'm supposed to do, along with a lot of other people in there. But I would see people have their there was a lady there that had her 7-year birthday about a week after I got to the club. And I remember thinking, that's cool. She came in and she had cake and all that stuff. And I was like, man, that's cool. Like, it was one of the first birthdays I'd ever seen. What was more impressive was the next day she was there. And I remember being early in sobriety, and I'm going, well, why would you go the next day? You just had a birthday. You can take a day off. But she was there the next day and the next day. And I was like, oh, it just happened to be her birthday that day. This is what she does. And what a great example, you know? So yeah, I'm proud to be a part of this program for sure.
So what you know, I guess when you get there, you know, a lot of us are beat down. I don't really think humility is one of those things we're just thinking about. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Were you ever think about humility when you got there? I didn't.
No, a lot of
Absolutely not.
humiliation, a lot of that
Yeah,
other word,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
no humility. And but like I said, I saw it in examples of people in the program all through the start of that journey, and I still do. And so it's what's so beautiful about this thing, you know. And it can be anybody at any time, and those moments hit you, and you go, oh, you know, and it's just great examples of how to, you know, a design for living, that how we should live our life, and good reminders.
You know, and I think about humility. I think also about like praying. You know, and this is not, first off, I get it. Some people can't, some people don't, some people just, everybody does their own thing and the way they want to do it. But like when it comes to praying, I get down on my hands and knees, you know, just because I feel like that's the right thing to do, you know. And again, I'm not giving advice here. I'm just telling you what I do. But whenever I first got sober, I would pray in the bathtub, and that was I don't know, it was kind of weird, you know. For me, it was kind of weird. I've heard a lot of people that do it since then, but I would pray in the bathtub every day, and then I would go dry off, get up, and go on about my day. And as time has evolved, I've gotten to where I just feel like whenever I speak to my higher power, that I need to be on my hands and knees, you know, understanding, you know, the true relationship, where I am definitely not the higher power. I'm, you know, this ain't like I'm just doing as if to make qualms. I actually have to, you know, I have to go through a process. Now, that is not humiliating, nor is it there's nothing wrong with it. You know, that's how I choose to do it. And, you know, the older we get, I guess it's harder to get up off your hands and knees, you know, or harder to get on them, or hell, some people's knees have welded together by now. And, you know, but then again, I have to look at it. I got to be that age, you know, I mean, I'm lucky to be 50. You know, I'm lucky I made it to 50 years old. You know, so why not humbly offer my prayers to a higher power?
And here's I'll take that one step further. I'm glad you said that about prayer. When I got in here, it was, dear God, help me, please, me. Don't worry about my kids or anybody else. I am here, the center of attention, and I'm all about you, God. Just keep helping me. And guy pointed out to me one day, he goes, hey man, you know, it's not all about you. And that's one of the coolest things that has evolved for me is a revolving prayer list, I guess you would say. And it gives me new stuff and new people to pray about. It's just not about me. And I'm very, very blessed in every aspect of my life. But
oh yeah,
it's so cool to, like, someone never knows that you're praying for them. You know they're going through something, and then you hear them go, oh, it worked out, and you hear the thing, and you just sit there, and nobody ever knew you did it. But you really pray for that person, and I love doing that. It's just, for me, it's awesome. And rarely do I pray very much for myself, other than, you know, making a decision, making sure I make a right decision that affects me or my family, and you know, yeah, that's a cool thing that evolves out of prayer, and then you get to see, you know, that work. And
the ability, you know, like you were talking about praying for other people, and they never know it. They don't have a clue. You know, there are actually people at that club right now, and I pray for them. And for some reason, something may have happened over the past 12 years, and they said something, or I was worried about something or whatever, and all of a sudden they entered into my prayers, and they're still there, you know, and just kind of.
This was the, and I don't know why I popped off and said it. It was just spur of the moment, and I didn't think about it, but there was a guy in here a couple years ago really trying to get his head on straight, and was just kind of out there, and he was sober, but he was still very early on. And I walked in one day, and he was coming a lot back then, and he said something, and we were joking right before the meeting. I was walking by, and he said, well, all I can say is just pray for me. And I turned around and I said, I did. I prayed for you this morning. And the look on his face was like, you did? And I don't know why I said it. I wasn't trying to, but I wanted him to know that people do care, you know, but the look on his face was awesome. And he was just like, wait a minute, what? And, you know, I hope he took that and that he continued with that. But, yeah, it's pretty nice. And that's a really nice way of getting to see God's results, and people never know, you know, they never know. But
Yeah, because how many people pray for us we don't know about?
oh,
Y'all ever thought about that? Like, how many people pray for you?
I mean, I've told this. I was on a prayer list at a church one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
was.
still are.
When I
Somebody
was
needs
in
to update that
treatment.
church.
You know, they probably still looking for me, but you know, yeah. I mean, there's no telling, and that's the thing with this is like humility on one level, like working with that guy this weekend. To go, yes, that's me. I'm sitting over there in the other seat. I'm somebody's buying me food, and I'm sick, and all these things, and I'm so messed up in my head and spiritually. And it was never a thing of like looking down my nose. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. I was just sitting there going, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Like that is me sitting there. And it's almost like God, I think he puts those things in our path, and we try to some of us try to stay very involved in that kind of stuff because it does. It's just very refreshing to go, ooh, I'm not far from that, you know? But,
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot happened for me in step 2 and 3 when it came to humility, being that I didn't believe in anything and I didn't care to, I didn't want to. And, you know, finally coming to a point in my life where I wasn't working for me, what I was doing, what I was thinking, my behaviors, you know, just all of it. And that I finally had to stop and realize like something way bigger than you is orchestrating this whole thing. And you have no clue, Jill. You have no clue. And for me to step back out of my will, out of Jill's will, and to get into God's will was the I think a huge turning point in my recovery, because I'd never known anything else than my will, and it never led to anything that fantastic.
Yeah.
It just really didn't. And now that, you know, I have a higher power, and I mean, I'm a believer now, and I have faith and all those wonderful things that go along with it. I live such a more peaceful life because I don't run the show, and I wouldn't even know how to if I had to. Like, I get to sit back now and let my life happen, and just like be a passenger, and which sounds really kind of sounds odd, but it's a beautiful experience to not feel like I need to control everything and I need to make everything happen. I just suit up and show up, and whatever God has planned for me is what happens. And it's nice to know I have a lot of faith in that. And it is a huge lesson in humility, because for once, you know, it's like, Jill, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely 100% okay, because everything goes so much smoother.
I gave Miss B such a hard time, my counselor, and you know, this is arrogance. Okay, I've been there like a week. 3 days of that, I was sent over to the Brentwood of our area because I was hallucinating. You know, so I've basically been in rehab a grand total of like 48 hours, and I'm barging in her door, and I'm like, you know what, I'll give this a year. I'll do this for a year. She goes, you haven't even done it barely a day.
Yeah.
Like, let's just worry about finishing the day.
You're committed to 364
And I'm like, I'm going to give it
more.
a year, but if this doesn't work out, you know, what an idiot, you know? And she would, her saying was always, let's review. That's what she would tell me. You did this, this, and this. This is where you were. And I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah.
Well, I used to hate humility meetings, man, and I was I just this for some reason this popped into my head, but old Randy, he was I think he had about, I don't know, 15, 16 years, and I was new, and I couldn't stand. I didn't like gratitude meetings. I didn't like birthday meetings. I didn't like humility meetings. I mean, what else is there besides a daily reflection meeting? And that shit went over my head. Hell, some of it still does.
The business meeting.
I like the business meeting. Well, at least I can talk math with you guys. But I didn't like those humility meetings. And I was sitting there next to Randy, and I was like, I think I got a lot of humility, man. I'm like,
Loads of it.
that whole speech is kind of a farce. But I said, what is, tell me, what is this, what is humility? What do you think it is? I'll tell you, this guy, like, he honed in on whatever part of recovery I was in. And he said, do you remember whenever you couldn't stop drinking, like when you didn't have a choice, but every day you had to drink, or you found a way to drink one way or another? Do you remember that? And I said, yeah. And he goes, what happened? And I said, well, I asked God to remove the obsession and drink, and he did. He said, so when's the last time you had that obsession, like where you just had to drink? I said, man, it's been a while. It's been a long time, like 3 months, and he said, well, imagine how you would feel if you woke up in the morning and you had that feeling. What would you do? And I said, I'd get on my hands and knees and start praying to God that he'd take it away. And he said, that's humility. Mm-hmm. That's what humility is. And I was like, oh, yeah. See, that's why they call that dude Yoda, man. Like, I'm like, I got that little nickname down in South Louisiana, just because of, whatever. Maybe because I'm short and green, but... and I have big ears, but Randy, like he knew exactly what to say, when to say it, because you got this newcomer who don't have any knowledge of humility whatsoever, probably not a humble bone in his body, unless it's deep down in there, needs to be found. Mm-hmm. And he honed in on that, and how he came up with that answer so fast, obviously I've been sharing that answer for years. Whenever people say that to me, this because I want to be like Randy when I grow up. But
don't we all?
But you see where I'm going with it. It's just that feeling of absolute no control over the situation, and then so I do the only thing I can do, reach out to a higher power to take care of it, and that's being able to say, I don't know how to fix this problem is pretty tough. It really is. And now I look back on it, years down the line, and some of those problems, as big as they weren't problems. Mm-hmm. Does that make,
absolutely
some of the things that really engaged our brains when we first got sober, everything was so huge. But I probably was still in that old mindset, catastrophizing and blowing things out of proportion. And not that there's anything wrong with that. If you're in that phase of recovery, hey,
that's just part of it.
That's
the
a phase.
Always falling.
That is a phase. I know that when I got out of, I think it was maybe right out of rehab, straight into the rooms, wondering when is that shoe gonna drop. When is it, something, there's no way life can be this good.
Yeah.
I to be honest with you, I don't know when that went away, but that lasted a long time. Like, life is just, life is life. I guess it's, what for me anyway, it's just what I make it. It really is. Does that make sense? It really is. Like, life can be really bad if I let it be really bad. Yeah, exactly. Life can be really good if I let it be really good.
But no matter what, it's always life.
Yeah.
It's always life. I just had this conversation with somebody, and they texted me a bunch of problems, and I went, isn't life good? Yeah. We're alive, we're kicking, and really I don't think they wanted to hear that, but that's life.
It's how you look at everything. I mean, I used to look at everything as just, I let everything just destroy me and bring me down, but now I use things like that as motivation. I'm like, I didn't do that back then. I just used it. It was my crutch. I used it to my, disadvantage. Not anymore.
I'm going to add something on humility too about, you were talking about work. And so this is something, I have a lot of guys that run crews and they do stuff, and I'm always, like you are, trying to find people that maybe can move up in a position or got a little bit where they would do better at moving along. And a lot of younger guys that are just getting started as adults in the work world, and you don't know where they're at. And humility is pretty cool as a manager of people, because they'll come to you, and some of them are very smart and real young, and they'll go, hey, can we do this way? And I want to look and go, well, you've been doing this 6 weeks. I've been doing this 14 years, but I don't do that. And I go, well, let's try it. If it sounds reasonable, let's try it. And what happens is sometimes that stuff works and sometimes it doesn't work, but it builds a little bit for them to go, I went to this guy and he was like, okay, we'll try it. Instead of going, no, you're going to do it my way. And basically killing that train of thought that they have that I can make this better, and you can see some of these guys develop and they go on, and it's because it's a backwards way of encouraging, and I have to go, is it going to be the end of the world if it fails? No, we can fix it. So let's try it. Let him learn a lesson. And it's great, so
humility is that kind of defines it in a general term is, when I think about what you just said, we've all worked for that person who every idea we have was shot down.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you just want to give up.
Yeah, you don't care. You're like, well, it doesn't matter.
And then if they view me as I viewed the folks before me, their opinion really does matter. What they think really does matter. And if they think all my ideas are bad, maybe I'm bad. Maybe I'm not cut out for it. Maybe I'm not, So let's take a look at it from another angle. Let's look at it as my higher power. My higher power never intervened. He probably put bumpers there to keep me alive, but he never intervened and said, no, you can't do that. He said, I'm gonna let you do whatever you want to do, man. Mm-hmm. You're gonna live on your will. Have at it. Maybe one day you'll be talking on a podcast about how that worked out for you. But
and the other side of that too is, having been in that industry a long time, I do have certain things that I'm warning them. Don't do this. Let's don't do that. And they go, why are you telling me you don't know? And I go, because I did it. Here's what happened. And I tell them the story, and they go, oh yeah, that didn't work out good. And I'm like, I'm trying to save your rear end and mine, And so when you can admit to them, hey, I mean, it's great. It just makes a better environment for everybody.
Well, we got about 15, 20 minutes left, and I want to talk about humility in the rooms of AA. I don't have a gift. I have a gift of sobriety, and it was given to me by a whole bunch of people, right? My higher power put a whole bunch of people in my life, and I came to depend on them for my recovery. In the rooms of AA, I try never to forget what it's like to be that newcomer. The questions that go through their mind, the things that they're thinking, I would hate to think I'm important enough for someone to get up and walk out and never come back. I would hate to think that highly of myself. But the truth is that's a very strong possibility, right? And so, sometimes in the rooms of AA, we find that we forget how long we've been around. Matt, you've been sober for 5 years, dude. That's like 60 months.
There's a lot of people still don't believe that, by the way.
I believe
my
you.
life. They're like,
And Jill's been sober for like 13. Mm-hmm. So that's 144 plus 12. That's 156 months, right? And I've been sober for a little over 144 months. That's a long time. That's a lot of months. Matter of fact, this lady was in my office the other day, and she had her kid, and It was on my daughter's birthday, and she was holding her baby, and somebody walked in, and they were like, "Oh, your baby's so cute." You know, she was one of my coworkers that came to see me off. And they were like, "How old is she?" And she's like, "Oh, she's, I don't know, 36 months or whatever it was." And I said, "It's just by chance today is my daughter's 288th month birthday."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had to throw that one out there. We still count in months because, it seems a lot longer when
It
you
does.
do that. I've been sober for, and then when you get to days, it sounds like not a whole lot,
You know what's crazy is I don't give it that much thought. Like me personally, I know a lot of people, like I've got friends that have a counter on their phone.
Yeah, I do.
And they can just, okay, Mike does. And, I mean, that's fine. But like they can pull it up and go, I've been sober this long. And I just never have, I don't give it that much thought. And people go, how long you been sober? And I go, oh, I don't know.
Well, you got that humility thing going on.
I don't know if it's that or dumbness, one of the two. I just can't keep up with it. But
No, and to be just full disclosure, I keep score. just so you know, I'm catching up with this one day at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
Catching up with it.
Yeah,
Boss
that's
is
right.
over here counting the hands.
I don't, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but if y'all continue, you're never going to catch her. I mean, it's kind of,
I know. I used to joke about that with Randy because I always wanted to catch up with Randy, but the only way to catch up with Randy is if he passes away
or you slip him some marijuana brownies or
I
something.
wouldn't do that.
Make him start over again.
No, I wouldn't do that to anybody. But the humility in the rooms of AA, I think sometimes we forget, that the big book tells us at the bottom of page 15, top of page 16, that we meet frequently so the newcomers may find the fellowship that they seek. If you're a newcomer out there and you're listening to this podcast, the guy talking in the podcast and his two guests or the two fellow co-hosts that are here today, we know the reason why we have AA meetings. And the reason why we have AA meetings is written in the big book on those pages at the very bottom of one and the top of the other. We meet frequently so that the newcomer may find the fellowship that he seeks. And it says he, okay? That's what the book says. He or she is the proper nowadays, or they. But that's why we meet, is so that newcomer will find a spot in AA. And they need to feel welcome. And just because I'm not immune to alcohol, I am not. I'm not close to a drunk. But provided I don't do the things that you could be doing.
I told my guy yesterday, I said, you know what, I don't have a drinking problem anymore, but I can get one real fast.
Absolutely.
Real fast.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm gonna tell you from experience, some folks that have longer recovery than me decide that at some point they're going to take their will and their life back over. They lose that humility. Look at what I've done for the past X amount of time. And 3 DUIs in a month or worse, death. I mean, I've just, we lose that humility. I can see where human nature would cause us to lose it because life gets so good. That's one thing you can't tell to a newcomer. I mean,
yeah.
You have no idea how good your life is going to be. I mean,
My whole thought forever was this is going to suck.
Yeah.
I thought that every day. It did suck for a long time.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I had to practice humility at first. I mean, I had to go out and purposely be humble. That's like complete opposite of humility.
But talking about newcomers coming in and humility, number one, the newcomer, and this is how we all work together in here, and it doesn't matter about the time, because that newcomer, the humility of being in there, number one, and just going, I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of strange people, and I might have to say something, I might not, but I don't have any clue what I'm doing in here or know anything about this. And then the person who has been in there a while sharing where they were with that newcomer, and it's just sort of bounce, and it lets the newcomer know that humility thing's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I think that's why people take to it when they truly come in there. There's a fear of they don't understand me, and then you start hearing people like Randy, who's the most nice looking guy ever, and then he goes, oh, well, I did this and this, and you go, what? And
that's why it's so important for me to really share the gritty, the ugly of early sobriety. And I always want to make sure that I do, because I've gotten so much feedback over the years from women. Of course I share my experience, my strength and my hope as well, but I had a rough time and a rough go at things, and I didn't think it would change. I didn't believe things would get better. And
And look at you now.
Wow. Just look at me.
Just look at you. Ain't that what you always said?
That's what Jill always says. Just look at you.
Just look at you. But it's really important because they do look at us and they think, wow, that will never be me, because that's exactly what I thought.
And we look at them and go, I hope to God that's never me.
Well, I mean, I remember like someone leaving treatment at 90 days and I'd gotten the treatment and I remember just crying, and I cried for quite a while, but I just thought, that will never be me. And for some reason, somehow, I've looped together, over 13 years of sobriety, and I was that person, and I didn't believe anything anybody said in the rooms, because I didn't believe.
Yeah.
You had come to believe.
I did. I did. I had to be proved. It all had to be proved to me. I wasn't listening to what anybody had to say.
Man, I'm going to tell you some of the prime examples of humility. You have somebody that's been sober for, 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And for them to sit in a meeting and say, hey, I'm struggling today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's, because no matter what it does matter what a newcomer thinks. And they all think differently, right? But I've been sober for a little bit, and to be quite honest with you, there are times, not days, I don't have full bad days, but there are times where I'm struggling. I pick up a phone though, and I call somebody, and I say, "Hey, this is what's going on," or I'm blatantly honest with people, and whenever they hear me say it, they think I might be kidding, because as I said in my personal story earlier, that outside appearances aren't always the way it is, But, I have a little story where, I was in New Orleans, and I'd been through, I work for a high-volume retailer, and I facilitate high-volume retailers, and went through COVID, which was, no one in the world really had ever experienced, no one alive anyway, had ever experienced anything like COVID. And then on top of that, being in a massive retailer that needs to stay open in order to, so people can have, goods, food. And I went through all of that, and through all of that COVID stuff, and I had say one store, I had upward of 600, 700 people working there. The other one was about 450. And you go through all of that struggles, and even though I was doing my AA meetings every day and reading my big book like crazy, attending Zoom meetings when we didn't have live meetings, and reading my big book for an hour a day, talking to other alcoholics, still had sponsees coming over to the house, even though we didn't know if we could or not, right? It was one of those, a real trying time. And then on top of that, had a hurricane blow through, cut out the power. Just, a lot of things happened in a short period of time, and something was off. There was something wrong, and so I met with a guy. He has about the same amount of time you do, Jill. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 6 months more, maybe not. But I met. His name is Mike, and I don't know what it is about the name, but it seems to go along with just extremely attractive people. But
Ooh, what
no,
talking about humility?
that's why I said it. That's why I said it. No, I was very attracted to his recovery, and I called him or told him one day. I said, "Man, I need you to meet me up here tomorrow at this time." And what's wrong? I just need to talk. And man, the next day I showed up. He was there. He was a little worried. He didn't know what I was going to tell him. He was just, he thought maybe I was upset with him or something, which in hindsight, I should have just talked to him right then, because the last thing I want to do is make someone have anxiety over me. But I told him, I said, man, I'm not right. I just need to talk to another alcoholic and tell you this is what's going on inside of me. This is what's going on in my head. And after I talked to him for about an hour and a half, he didn't solve my problems, by the way. He didn't have an answer. He didn't, he was probably more baffled when he left talking to me than he was when he got there. But there's that one alcoholic talking to another that makes you understand, even if you don't get answers to your problem, which we don't expect to, that drinking isn't an answer, right? That going back to the sauce is just not a way to go. I wasn't thinking about it at all. Man, that's the last thing I want to do is go back to June 21st, 2011. Where I was on that day, I do not want to be there again. But to see it in advance and go, hey, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I need to reach out to another alcoholic right now, right? I have to have enough humility to do that, to sit down with someone and say, this is what's going on with me, and I'm hurting. I'm scared. I don't feel good. This is bad. This is not good. Just the comfort of being able to talk to someone, you know. I don't even know if he said 3 words the whole time I talked, but I got to talk and I got to hear him. I want other, you know, I would like for other people to be able to do that with me, because I don't expect anything out of anybody. I would much rather someone with 30 years sober say, hey, man, I need to talk to you, and pull me in a room and have a full-blown conversation than be the guy that shows up at a meeting and they go, hey, you hear old so-and-so went out, and, you know, I don't know what's going on with him, but he's been, you know, man, to hell with all that. You know, have enough humility to go to another person and say, this is what's going on with me. Somebody needs to know your version of the truth. Might not be the whole truth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense too?
Absolutely. Your perception.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, your
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, your perception of things.
Jill's chilling over there.
Hard like laid back.
But somebody, and a lot of times, I remember talking to a lady down there, and I was out. I know exactly what I was talking about. I'm not going to say it, but after I finished saying this little ceremonious pity pot conversation, she said, well, is that the way it really was, or is that just the way you feel? Mm-hmm. And I remember it to this day because something clicked, and it's just the way I feel. It's probably not the way it was.
Yeah, a little cognitive restructuring.
Yeah, there we go, Matt. I told you.
I was gonna say that, but
I knew it.
she took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, cognitive.
Sounds kinky. I don't know. It sounds like something bad. But
I know. You charge extra for that?
we got these saddles in here. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, what did you do with the whips?
Yeah. Do you whip the
You didn't
horse?
see them? They're right
they're
behind it.
not. Okay.
Good Lord.
Yeah, spurs are gone. You notice that?
We weren't those kind of cowboys.
Y'all actually rode cows, not horses. Go saddle up the cow. No. I hope in all of our listeners, if any of this episode didn't go out, whether you're new, you've been around a while, no matter what, you have an AA family, it's probably not anything like your real family, because they don't want to see you struggle, and they need to hear you talk. They need to hear you say what's on your mind. Say it. Ain't nobody going to judge you, right? They may act like they do. They may give you advice. They may do all of those things, but the truth is you got to get it out. So
I agree. Give it less power.
AA people are really good listeners, too. I don't know if you noticed that in the outside world. People are not good listeners. AA people are good listeners. They know, I think it's just a thing of when to sit down and let somebody.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Because of AA, I have about 30 women. I'm not talking about women that I can call.
Yeah.
On my phone and do that with.
Yeah.
That's.
And I could probably, I don't
Probably
know.
more.
Yeah. I would imagine I could probably count 30 for you and me and Jill known each other, 10 months, 11 months. And I could probably count 30 women that you could pick up the phone and call. Right. And
Yeah.
Matt, I know you got probably 100 women that you could pick up the phone.
Just women, yeah. It's all the same person, but put different names on
different
it.
personalities.
Looks like a lot of women.
All right. Well, that about wraps up this episode on humility. I think we're going to dive off into step 6 on the next one.
Okay.
Be releasing this here in just a few minutes, and going to have a bonus episode out tomorrow, maybe Tuesday before that one hits the airwaves. Got a little bit of editing to do on that one, but it's me telling my story. Congratulations again to Larry and Judy, our friends that got married over the weekend in Florida. A shout out to Miss Faye and to Michelle.
Hey,
and
guys.
to Jane and to Kim and to Rhonda and Amy C. and Lacombe. Hope she made it back from her trip safely. If she's back, I don't know, but I know she was on a trip, a real trip, not a mental trip.
Not a LSD trip.
No, she was on an
Gotcha,
actual trip. Saw some posts on IG, and so happy to have all of our listeners out there. I'm going to remind everyone once again that our email address is GandB Bossier, BOSSIER @gmail.com. That's GandBbossier @gmail.com. The cell phone number you can call and leave a voicemail on, and we will play it on the air, is area code 985-377-4816. Love to hear from everyone out there, and we would love to play your stuff on the air, and we would really like to hear from some of our people in other countries. Some of these other countries that listen in, hey, send us an email. I don't know how long distance works nowadays, or if it even still a thing. You know, when I was a kid, you called the guy in the next county. It costed a fortune.
Had to get a phone card.
Yeah, get a phone card, or, you know, when we had to add money to people's books and stuff. But some of the folks in other countries, drop me an email. Would love to read them. If I'll figure out a way to translate it if I don't speak your language. That's okay. We all speak the language of AA, and I'm sure our listeners would love to hear from you. So, Jill, you got anything to add?
I don't believe I do.
Matt?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that is listening, and I don't always get to listen to these episodes right when they come out, and I know that we do them when we have people on here, bonus, and have people on for episodes, but I've listened to them in bits and pieces, and I really enjoy. You guys help us as well, and I know Mike and Jill listen to them too, and there's a lot of things on there that I don't necessarily catch in the heat of the moment, but down the road I play back and go, oh, wow, that was really good. So I just really appreciate everybody that's listening and doing their thing. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. All right, guys, from Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this has been The Grouch and the Brainstorm.